Morning, everybody. Crappy Mondays. Welcome to the News Agenda with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined for the first time by Royal Features writer Jennifer Newton. Morning, Jennifer.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
My mother's called Jennifer.
Oh, nice.
And I'll try not to do what her mum's budgerigard did for the entirety of her childhood, which was to say, Jennifer, Jennifer, all the time. But every time I hear the word, I want to do the budgerigard impression. Right, so this is the People's Pay-Per-View, so get into the comments, ask us your questions. Those of you listening later on podcast will just have to ask yourselves if you could have done any better from the bush on the side of the fairway. So what have we got for you today? Well, speaking about that, for a country with a right to a well-regulated militia enshrined in its constitution, the USA has a shocking lack of any requirement to actually train with the firearms you're allowed to purchase. And the Mirror has therefore splashed on a second failed assassination attempt on the loser ex-president Donald Trump. And Jennifer, I realise this isn't quite your purview normally, but you've read the paper and the stories today. They've all come out overnight, really, while we were asleep. Still a few details coming through. But what do we know so far about this? What's happened?
So I think what we know so far is that Trump yesterday was playing golf at one of his golf courses in Florida when the Secret Service, who obviously his security, saw this man pointing an AK-47 rifle in his direction, and shots were fired. And on this occasion, Trump was whisked away. It didn't come near him, but yeah, they had to arrest the man. And the FBI have now said that it was, in their opinion, an apparent assassination attempt. Another one. Yeah.
What do you think, everybody? What does this say about America? They've had 2 assassination attempts in this one election race. I can't remember any in recent history, so they seem to be stepping up a little bit. So what actually happened, apparently, was Trump was playing his golf, and the Secret Service were sort of off ahead at the next hole kind of thing, just scoping it out. And so they sort of rock up in their little buggy, and someone saw a rifle barrel sticking out of a bush, which is hard enough to see, I would have thought, but they spotted it, got their guns out and started shooting at him. He dropped his gun and ran away, got in a car and drove off, and was stopped about 60 miles away. And now the suspect has been identified as a 58-year-old man called Ryan Routh, who was known to the authorities for firearms offences, among other things. And he seems to have been quite obsessed about the war in Ukraine, and that may be a possible reason for the attempt. So he's an ex-Trump voter. He liked him enough to vote for him back in 2016, but he has been trying to recruit US fighters to go and fight for Ukraine against Russia on social media. So presumably, he's become a bit disillusioned over Trump's support for Putin and talk of peace negotiations and so on if he gets back into the White House. And Jennifer, it's just, like I was saying, it's an extraordinary election when there's one guy making an assassination attempt, but 2 seems quite excessive, even for America. Is this a function, do you think, of how much rests on this election, how divided the country is, really, and how angry people are as well?
I think so, definitely. I mean, it's so polarizing. It seems that everyone's one side or the other side. There's no in between. That nobody can be, well, I like some things that Trump says, I like some things that Kamala Harris says. It seems like everyone is one side or the other. And I suppose as well, in a country where guns are so freely available that unfortunately these things probably are going to happen.
Exactly. And if you have people that are cross and angry, can you imagine? I mean, we did have murders with guns during the Brexit debate. The degree to which that was linked one to the other is in dispute, but I think the maths is fairly obvious. But can you imagine if we had guns in every home in the country, we probably wouldn't still be throwing milkshakes, would we? Maybe there should just be milkshakes in the US Constitution. Everybody has a right to a milkshake. You can throw one once a year, kind of thing, at a politician, and then some of these problems would go. Steve says, in such a close election, it might be pivotal if Trump can spin it to his advantage. You're right, Steve. He had a big jump in the polls after the first assassination attempt. Too early to tell what would happen as a result of this one. Of course, he didn't actually get caught or shot at all this time. He was whisked away to safety before he got anywhere near the gunman. But one of the things I suspect that his allies are going to be talking about, Jen, is the amount of security around him. So a candidate on the trail and a former president gets less security than the sitting president. obvious reasons. Sitting president, the one with the red button. But, if Joe Biden was playing golf on that course, the entire course would be shut down. You'd have 100 Secret Service agents around it. When Trump's playing on there, he's got 6, 20, whatever it might be. Less, anyway, fewer. And while nobody wishes anybody else dead, shooting politicians, even obese Oompa Loompa rapists like this one, is not socially acceptable. Personally, I've got no problem with winging him. Maybe if they'd tried that, that's fine. But after this is going to happen, there's going to be talk, isn't there, from his allies about the fact that he didn't have enough security, even though they caught the guy. They'll be saying he needs more. He needs to be treated more like a president that's incoming, almost as though someone who's won the election before he's even got to that point. Because, it is fair to say he's plainly a target for people, far more than Kamala Harris is so far. Do you think he's got enough security? Does this show that the security is working, or does it show that he needs more?
Well, I don't know. It's a hard question, isn't it? I suppose maybe it does show he needs more, because this is the second time it's happened in the space of 2 or 3 months. But at the same time, he is a very divisive character, and from some of the things that he says, some of his rhetoric is going to wind people up the wrong way. And I'm not saying that means that people should then go out and try and do what this man has apparently tried to do yesterday. But if I suppose it is. He's making himself a target.
And then, on the other hand, they have actually managed to catch him, and he was perfectly safe. And they whisked him away, and they had made some more sort of resources available to him after the last assassination attempt. So presumably that means it's working to some extent, and he will attract loonies. And I'm sure on the other side, Kamala Harris does get her share of loonies, although there's been no assassination attempts yet. But the thing that's going to happen after this, before we go into anything else, what do you think, everybody? Do you think Trump should get more security? Do you think his would-be assassin should get more target practice? I don't know. What do you think, everybody? But the thing is that after this, he's going to be not allowed to play golf as much. He's going to be not allowed to go to the rallies as much that he kind of thrives on and lives off. And he's going to be kept indoors, where he's going to see Kamala Harris and Ted Waltz with all their rallies getting increasingly furious. Do you think, he's going to have perhaps suffer a bit as a result of this assassination attempt, rather than last time when he got this big boost? This time it could put him back in his box a bit, I suppose.
Possibly, yeah, if he can't get out and do what he seems to be, in his world good at, going out to these rallies, speaking to people. They seem to attract a large number of people. But, at the same time, I was reading his next appearance not in public, but as such, he's going to be speaking on Twitter or X later tonight. And I don't know, maybe that is one of the ways that he can harness his supporters is through social media, and he's always got that. So maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Being under attack is something that the strong men and dictators do like to propagate quite a bit as well. You benefit from it. Richard says they'll have a job finding a body double for him. They could get an Oompa Loompa, Richard, and just pump it up really big. Like that. Maybe that would do it. Right, we need to move on to the main story of the day. Or Steve says, it does seem both shooters were just loonies rather than being politically motivated. I would argue both is possible, Steve. And it does seem to be often in the States. Now, on to the main story of the day. And speaking of America, one of its most famous recent immigrants has had his 40th birthday yesterday. And at his home in the billionaire's enclave of Montecito in California, Prince Harry may have been surprised to see that his brother and sister-in-law, William and Catherine, were sending him birthday wishes on Twitter, which is something that hasn't happened in the 3 years since he left the royal household and lobbed a grenade back through the door on his way out. Now, Jen, can you take us through this? What's happened exactly? We're very excited about it in the Mirror. We've given it 2 pages. So take me through it.
Yes, so basically yesterday it was Prince Harry's 40th birthday. Obviously, everybody knows the rift between him, King Charles, Prince William, Kate has been quite frosty for a long time. So when it came to his birthday yesterday, the royal family official Twitter and Instagram accounts, which you could say are kind of, King Charles's official Twitter and Instagram accounts, went and wished him a happy birthday, shared a lovely picture of Harry smiling, looking happy. And I don't think that was too much of a surprise, because there has been kind of reports in recent weeks that Harry wants to rekindle his relationship with his father, and vice versa. Charles is keen to get Harry back on board, but we've all been hearing that William, you know, as far as he's concerned, that's it. After what happened with Spare and the Netflix series, there was no way back for them. But yeah, shortly after, I think an hour or two after that, William and Kate's official Prince and Princess of Wales accounts also did the same message, shared the royal family account with their own little message, something along the lines of wishing the Duke of Sussex a happy birthday today. So yeah, cue a lot of people saying that, is this the olive branch? Is this the thing that is going to allow William and Harry to reconcile? Yeah.
It's a sign, perhaps, of just how frosty things have been, that when they send a fairly anodyne tweet, everyone goes, "Oh my God, look at that!" You know, it's like actually making eye contact for the first time in years. Autumn says the British people don't want Harry to move back. It may well be, Autumn, that William and Catherine are of much the same frame of mind. It is, when you come down to it, Jennifer, it's just a tweet, isn't it? It's the most meaningless thing. But there's an awful lot of meaning kind of attached to it because of what's gone before.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, when you look at it, at the end of the day, you could say it's just not that deep. It's just a tweet. And I don't personally know, but did William and Kate themselves type the tweet? Probably not. But at the same time, I can't imagine it went on their social media accounts without them, you know, without somebody who works for them saying, is it all right if we do this? So it's one of those things where in normal life, you'd just be like, oh yeah, well, we've wished them happy birthday. But I suppose in royal life, it's, you know, people look into things so much
scrutiny, isn't it? That they know when they do it, there's going to be an awful lot of people just piling in going, oh, what does this mean? What's all the symbolism here? And normally when William and Kate tweet, they do actually sort of sign it, don't they, with their initials. So we know that it's come from them. This one doesn't seem to have had that. So they've still done it at arm's length, as it were. And what do you think, everybody? Is this do things need to thaw? Do they all need to grow up a bit? You know, the King's got cancer. Kate's had cancer and just finished chemo. Everyone's got children. All this seems a little bit self-indulgent to you. It does a little bit to me. But then again, you know, there's an awful lot that's been going on that's incredibly horrible, really. I mean, Meghan and Harry accused Catherine herself, personally, they let it be known that it was Catherine who questioned the colour of their son Archie's skin when she was still pregnant. And that's the kind of thing that I'd have thought William and Catherine would find very, very difficult. And indeed, Meghan and Harry find very difficult to really get over, regardless of what the truth is there and what really happened, and how much of six of one half dozen the other. Those four are going to have issues, aren't they? And maybe he can be friendly again with the King, but those four are going to never really be pally again.
Yeah, no, I think even if they did manage, I mean, it was just last month, there was reports William and Harry were actually in the same room when they went to their uncle's funeral. Again, it was said that they didn't speak to each other. They kept to their own sides of the room, and it was, you know, whatever. And again, you could say, is that an olive branch because they managed to get into the same room together and didn't manage to, you know, tear each other's hair out? But, you know, at the same time, you would like to think that they are grown up about it. They can go to a funeral for their uncle, who they both, I assume, loved very much, and could act like, you know, civil, but rather than, you know, start a massive argument in the middle of a wake or something like that.
There's going to be, you know, hopefully many years from now, but the King's going to pass. Camilla, who Harry was quite rude about, but is going to pass. Catherine and Meghan and William and Harry themselves are all eventually going to age. And at some point, whoever's left about is going to have to go to the other one's funeral or be invited to it. And it's just, you know, it needs to perhaps grasp things by the net a little bit. Steve says it's not a particularly intimate way to wish a family member a happy birthday. Then again, what do you give an exiled prince who has everything? They may, of course, reached out privately, mightn't they, Jennifer? They might have. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think the last time William texted Harry, it was when the Netflix documentary was being filmed, and he didn't quite show it on camera, but he showed Meghan on camera, who reacted on camera. Barbara. So
yeah. There was reports that, in fact, that William and Harry haven't really spoken a word to each other in 2 years. That was obviously at the time, when the late Queen died and they did that walkabout in Windsor. That was the last time that they actually exchanged words with each other. But yeah, who's to say that William possibly didn't pick up the phone last night and thought, you know what, it's gone on too long now. But we'll never know that. But obviously, I think from what we see is the public side and the fact that this has been done in public. And I will say as well, there's nothing to say that the royals might have just thought, if we don't take the lead here and just wish him a happy birthday, like what have we got to lose by doing that? Nothing. Because if they didn't do it, then they would have probably woken up to headlines this morning saying, King snubs Prince Harry again, or William snubs Harry on his birthday. So maybe it's for the best that they did do it, even if there wasn't maybe a phone call or a card in the post.
Whether the motive is a rapprochement or whether it is just trying not to look as bad as doing the alternative, which is why your staff thing rather than me. Mike says, I hope person sends tweet gets me a front page headline sometime. Hasn't happened this time even, Mike. It was Trump got on front page, although I suspect that it might have been the front page if Trump's would-be assassin hadn't done what he did yesterday. So we'll have to see. What do you think? Do you think Harry and William should be trying to get it over and done with or not? Do you think that this has gone too far? I mean, we've all got families like this. We've all got estrangements and problems in our own families. Do you just have to just take it grasp it by the neck and say, look, let's move on for the sake of everybody? Or do you, let it fester and go, actually, no, it was too bad. I don't want to. And that's that. What have you done when it happens to you and your families? Steve says, did he get a scented candle from Meghan? I'm sure Oprah will find out shortly what Meghan got Harry, and there'll be plenty of coverage about it. They seem to be quite happy, don't they? I mean, regardless of what happens, but there's been lots of talk recently, Jen, about, Harry saying he wants his allies really sort of talking about how he wants to perhaps, have a restored relationship with his family, that he wants to reconcile at least with the king as he's sort of dealing with cancer. Jennifer says, leave him be. They'll sort out their affairs in their own time. I don't talk to half my family. There's no love lost. I think that you've covered both bases there, Jennifer, really, in your comment. It could be either or, couldn't it? He did still call them racist, though. He did still say they were harmful to his mental health. His wife did point the finger at Catherine. The grandchildren are only able to see grandpa on FaceTime, even though he's got cancer. It's not really that optimistic. He's still on a different continent and there's absolutely no sign of returning home. Are we perhaps, rather than talking about reconciliation, we're just talking about a ceasefire more than anything else, so everyone just agrees to stop fighting each other and go about your business sort of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think given that what has happened in the past, are they going to get back, say, William and Harry, are they going to get back to a relationship before where they were going out on engagements together and they looked really tight? I mean, even if, they just decided to put everything behind them and just say, you know what, let's just move on. From what I can see at the minute, I can't imagine it going back to what it was 10 years ago.
No, they're not.
And they're different people these days. They've got their own, they're both married with their own children. And maybe it is for the best that they just said, you know what, we're just going to stop all this, but we'll just get on with our own lives. And
speaking to you, it reminds me of is the divorce between between Charles and Diana. So you've got one who's got the duty and the job, who's having to plough on with that, right, and has really no option, but is also seems to have found a woman that he would like to spend his life with and have found his happiness, but is going to do that. And you've got the other one who's a bit more of a live wire, likes the attention, a bit more fragile as well, perhaps a bit more interesting, a bit more glamorous in some ways, who wants to go off and live the international philanthropic jet-setting way of life. And of course, the car accident that took Diana's life meant she never did any of that. But it's like Harry is far more Diana and William was far more Charles, and they had huge rows. But by now, perhaps if she'd still been alive, they might have been on speakers again and, invited over for Christmas or who knows what. Maybe it could all, if Diana and Charles maybe would have been capable of it, then maybe William and Harry one day. What do you think? Would you put money on it? How much money would you put on this?
I'm not sure how much. Maybe it's one of those where you put on a little, £2 in the hope that it comes up.
Each
But
way.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But at the same time, you can't not say that it would never happen. I mean, it is quite interesting because it depends on which publications you're reading as to how happy Harry is at the minute. If you read the ones, that you would say so-called Sussex-friendly publications, you'd think that he's having a great time, life in California. He's got this new life. It's so glamorous. He goes and rubs shoulders with the Hollywood elite. He's got all these new friends. And then he gave that statement to the BBC, which was on Friday, saying how excited he is to turn 40. And then you read something else and it'll say, he's missing his life in the UK and he's fed up and he might want to come back. But I think it's probably both are true at the same time. Maybe he is having a great life in California. Maybe he loves living there. He doesn't really want to come back to the UK, but surely there's something inside him that thinks, I wish it was done differently.
Yeah. Steve, who's doing a lot of work today, this morning, Steve. It says in profile, Meghan looks a lot like Wallis Simpson. The royal family does have a bit of a history with American divorcees. They don't always know how to handle them, it would appear. I mean, in terms of sort of Harry's future and where he goes now, he's a multimillionaire, but he's living in a billionaire's enclave with a billionaire costs. He's not a billionaire. So he's living beyond his means to some extent. He wants to be a philanthropist, but you can't do that unless you're earning money out of something. And he's sold everything already. So there's going to come a point, one would have thought, where you're in that sort of Prince Andrew zone, where you have a house, you have a certain income, and it's not enough to marry the one to the other. But you can't go and just live in any old house somewhere else and downsize because you've got all these security needs. You're at huge risk. And he can't. One of the things he's been arguing about, isn't it, that he's got his court cases pending, is he can't come back to the UK because he doesn't have the right security in place. The security that he does get here, he's got to give them 28 days notice. And the king says, well, you can stay with me. It's fine. You'll be in secure accommodation. But he says he wants his royal protection back when he's in this country, which is a huge expense to the taxpayer. And which is probably just not going to happen. But at least while that case is going on, and even afterwards, he would have to back down a huge amount, wouldn't he, to spend any reasonable amount of time here with less than 28 days notice. It's just, I think that's going to be one of the big hurdles, not so much whether the family want him back or whether he wants to be back. It's going to be the fact is how he can square the court case he's had against his own father's government in his own father's courts for the taxes off his father's people to pay for his security, and then he just comes back anyway without it. Or that's going to be one of the sticking points, isn't it? I'd have thought.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that is the sticking point. There have been reports that Harry feels like his father could do something about the security situation. Obviously, there has been, briefing that is not the case. That and I can understand it probably isn't the case because, I don't think it is a good thing that monarchs or, kings, queens getting involved in government, that has always gone well in the past.
Yeah, it's officially the case the king has got no role in this, but it's unofficially the case the king could say to Keir Starmer and it would be done. So, but that is going to be a sticking point, isn't it? I think Richard says the Sussexes are stuck in the royal curse, but without the balancing benefits. There's the rub. I think they want to be in, but they also want to be out at the same time. So we'll have to see how things pan out there. But anyway, a tweet and someone didn't shoot Donald Trump. There's the not news for Monday morning, everybody. That's just quickly summed up. Now, we have managed to find a bit of good news for you, and here it is. Now, there are many things wrong with the world and the people in it, but it comes to something when you are able to not only spend 78 years in one person's company, but you both reach 100 with your marbles mostly intact and glad to have been shackled to each other for so long. And that is what has happened for Peter and Peggy Taylor. They met in a bar in Crewe in 1944. And have celebrated their centenaries this year within a few months of each other. He was aircrew on the Lancaster Bombers, later a head teacher and honorary scout leader. And she was a land girl in the Women's Land Army. They've been together ever since. They met in Crewe. They still live in Crewe. They've got multiple greats of grandchildren they've been celebrating with in the past couple of months. And it's enough to bring a tear to your eye when you think, how much they must have experienced, how many arguments they must have managed to get over in that time, how much they've gone through together and managed to persist with it. Jen, is this proof, you think, that if you stick at it, practice, really does make perfect?
Well, it seems so. I mean, when I saw the picture in the paper today, I thought, oh my God, they look so well for 178 years of marriage. That picture of them so nice. And what I really liked about this story was when they asked what the secret to longevity is. And it's so simple. What Pete said, simple joys and mutual respect.
Yeah, it's cool.
Maybe,
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say if maybe that's something William and Harry can.
Respect. That would be nice, wouldn't it? When I was working in local papers, when you have to go and do golden weddings and diamond weddings, you always had to ask them, to what to you is the secret of a long marriage? And they always said exactly the same thing, which is give and take. Bit of give and take, never going to sleep on an argument, which is that, isn't it? It's mutual respect. It's just going, fine, I get it, whatever, we'll get through this one and get to the other side. And yes, like you say, that is probably an argument for Prince Harry and William to sort of think twice about whether they're actually doing any of that. Because brotherhood should be even more long-lasting than marriage, one would have thought. But 78 years, well done. And nobody throttled either. Well done. Right, thank you, Jen, for taking us through all those things. I hope your first time on the show wasn't too difficult, and we'll see you again. Get in touch, everybody, if there's something we didn't cover, something you didn't mention, if there's a burning question about something else, if you've got a relationship problem or an issue with someone at work, email me. The best ones we will discuss on the show. Susie.boniface@mirror.co.uk. Ask the Fox and see if we can fix it for you. If you're listening on podcast, please leave us a review so other people can find us. Otherwise, we will see you again on Wednesday for another edition of the News Agenda. Till then, everybody, tatty bye.